How's it going, guys? It's Cass. So I've already made a video about Poisonous Concoction when I was first going through my discovery of this skill, and I still feel generally the same way. But in that video, the only thing that I really tested was the flash charges and how the skill felt. I didn't go beyond that because I didn't really think the skill was that great. Honestly, I still don't think the skill is that great, but in this video, I'm going to go through every possible thing that I could think of about Poisonous Concoction just to test it, so you have a resource of things that work, things that don't work with Poisonous Concoction for those that are wanting to play this skill or potentially thinking about playing this skill. So this video is going to be a little bit all over the place, but we're going to just test a bunch of stuff. The first thing that we're testing is, does it shotgun? And yep, it does shotgun. The next thing we're going to look at is, how does it work with how does it work with Widowhail, and does it work with Widowhail? So I have a Widowhail here, and I have a quiver that gives me +2 Proj skills. We can check right away if it's working or not. We can see, okay, I have level 23 Poisonous Concoction, so it does look like it's working. If I take this off, it goes to 17. So it's saying that it's working, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually using the skill. So we're going to test this by doing something pretty simple. We're going to throw our flask. We're going to check the number. So we got 12,000 there. We're going to respond at the checkpoint. And now for this stuff too, I've tested it more than just this one time, so I know the outcomes of this already. But in this video, we're just going to do one sample sizes, but I've done much more sample sizes to ensure that it actually works the way that it does. So we can see that Widowhail does work with this skill. So I think honestly Widowhail is probably going to be the best way to scale this ability. We can also try it without Widowhail, so let's put my other bow on. My other bow doesn't have +2 skill gems. We're at 19 now, so this should be arranged somewhere in between the two. And that was more because of crits. Let's try it again. I didn't have Wither on. I am trolling. Time. And yeah, we can see when it doesn't crit, it's pretty much slightly more than without it because we have +2 levels. So the quiver does matter as long as you actually have a bow. If you don't have a bow equipped, then obviously your quiver is disabled, so make sure you have a bow equipped. And honestly, it's probably just going to be Widowhail anyway. Next thing that we're going to hit on is how you can sustain this skill. It is possible to sustain based off of what I've heard from people. I haven't tested it specifically because of the amount of investment that you need, but the main idea from other people that I've seen is pretty simple and pretty obvious. You just get connected chemistry, and then you get the spirit gem that gives you alchemist boon, which I'll show you real quick. Alchemist boon just gives you flash charges over time, and it's a pretty good aura to help sustain this. Now you might also need a belt that is called a fine belt. Fine belts have an implicit that give you flash charges over a certain period in conjunction with alchemist boon, and also in conjunction with connected chemistry. Should be more than enough to sustain this, but again, I haven't specifically tested this, so you may want to make sure to test it on your own. Next thing is going to be leveling this skill. Leveling this skill is based off of just your player level. If you go on PoeDB, it'll show you what level requirements has for the skill as it levels higher. And I believe level 90 is when you unlocked the level 20 base version of the skill. How do you get extra supports for this skill? You get supports for this skill based off of the base gem level. So in this case, my Poisonous Concoction is level 23, but it's actually only level 16. So I believe I received my fifth link when I hit level 15. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it would make sense that it's like 4 link at 10, 5th link at 15, and 6th link at 20. So this does mean that you don't have to pay for the 6th linking of this, which is pretty good. Probably the main benefit of this skill. Now, the next thing is a little bit complex. We're going to talk about how weapon skills work, specifically weapon skill trees. So we have 2 separate weapon sets, and the way that I test this is fairly simple. One weapon set I have dark entries on, the other weapon set I don't have dark entries on. And unfortunately, if you look at Poisonous Concoction, you can see that it doesn't have a weapon skill tag. So since it doesn't have a weapon skill tag, you can't automatically use one tree over the other. This means that you're going to have to either press X every single time you want to use Poisonous Concoction, or you're going to just say screw it and have these unarmed nodes on your normal tree anyway, if you're only using Poisonous Concoction. Now, there is a world where, like, obviously, if Poisonous Concoction is your main damage skill, it doesn't really matter. But if you're using other skills in conjunction with Poisonous Concoction, then it might be better off to set up one weapon skill tree for Poisonous Concoction specifically, and then one weapon skill tree for your other skills. So obviously, if you're using like Gas Arrow, or if you're using Toxic, what is that skill tree? Toxic Growth. If you're using Toxic Growth and you want to get as much damage out of Toxic Growth, then you probably don't want unarmed attack damage on your skill tree for Toxic Growth. So what you could do in that case is have weapon set 2 have your unarmed stuff for Poisonous Concoction, and then have your weapon set 1 have none of the unarmed stuff and be focused more into projectile damage and chaos damage for Toxic Growth. In that case, in order to actually use those skills correctly, every single time that you press Toxic Growth, it will automatically switch to Toxic Growth if, say, you put Toxic Growth as only in weapon set 1. Now the problem is if you do that, you're going to run into this situation. So let's talk about it. I have Toxic Growth as my weapon set 1. But in my actual weapons, right, I have Widowhail in my weapon set 2. So if that's the case, where I have Widowhail in my weapon set 2, and I have Toxic Growth using weapon set 1, what's going to happen is whenever I press, if I'm on weapon set 2, and I press Toxic Growth, it's going to instantly switch to my other weapon set. So let's say if I set up my tree to be focused on like only projectile damage, no unarmed stuff on my weapon set 1, and then on my weapon set 2, I'm going to be focusing on Poisonous Concoction damage. The problem here is that since we can't select which weapon set we want Poisonous Concoction to use, it's going to always use the current weapon set that you have. So in this case, if I use Toxic Growth, because the tree is different, I have to press X again to switch to the tree with Poisonous Concoction, and then we can see how that functions, right? So every time I want to press Poisonous Concoction, I have to press X, then I have to manually throw it, right? So that is something that's going to be annoying, and something I hope that they allow you to change in the future. Just make this skill feel much better. But for the time being, unfortunately, you're going to have to manually swap between the 2 weapon sets if you want to have a specific tree or a specific weapon set for Poisonous Concoction only. But that's pretty much it. We got a little ranty at the end there, but hopefully all that stuff makes sense. If you have any questions about Poisonous Concoction in general, feel free to leave a comment. The only other thing that I wanted to say is that the last question that you might have is, should you try and play Poisonous Concoction? And my answer right now is, I don't really know. It might be good, might also not be good. This is my first character. I've already spent like probably close to 100,000 gold just specking on specking to test things, but I'm not about to brick my whole entire character just to try Poisonous Concoction on the off chance that it's good. Now, I might make a second ranger only to play Poisonous Concoction. That's probably going to be like a week or 2 from now, potentially. But That's going to depend on how fast leveling can go, because I don't really want to spend like 20 hours just to get to the same place on a character when I could be doing that for a different character, if that makes sense. But anyway, if you do decide to force Poisonous Concoction, please let us know how it goes and leave a comment for everyone else to see your progress and what specifically you're doing. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Hope this helped you.